Saying the Pledge of Allegiance at school is a controversial topic and always will be. The Pledge of Allegiance is part of the history of our country. Knowing the history of our country is something that's taught over and over again in school. Personally, I had United States history classes at least 4 times in my 13 years of school. When I was in elementary school, the Pledge of Allegiance was said every day. Small groups of students went down to the office to say the Pledge of Allegiance over the loudspeaker during the morning announcements. Along with the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem is played before school sporting events. 12 out of 14 classmates said the national anthem should be said before sporting events. If the national anthem is being played before sporting events, shouldn't the Pledge of Allegiance be said before school every day? Being an American is a privilege many people take advantage nowadays. Just because we are free now doesn't mean that everyone can forget about how we got here. I'm a credible source because this topic is important to me and I'm studying to become a teacher and want what's best for all my students. All schools should require students to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance before school starts. Knowing the Pledge of Allegiance and knowing what the Pledge of Allegiance mean is 2 totally different things. The pledge is a vow of loyalty and support for the country, especially the United States, from dictionary.com. Now that is just the dictionary definition of the Pledge of Allegiance. Digging deeper into the Pledge of Allegiance has more meaning to it. According to the United States District Court, Southern District of West Virginia, the pledge is broken up into more meaning. I pledge allegiance means I promise to be true. To the flag is a symbol of our country. Of the United States of America means that each state is joined to make our country. And the republic means that a republic is a country where people choose others over laws and the government. Which it stands for means the flag of the country. Our nation is a single country. Under God means that people believe in a supreme being. Indivisible means the country cannot be split into parts. With liberty and justice for all means with freedom and fairness for each person, including you and me. The pledge says that they're promising to be true to the United States of America. The more you say the pledge, the more you understand what it means. You appreciate living in the United States and being free. Now, how does this relate to the importance of students saying it in school? Well, look at it this way. Students support the school you attend. The most common way this happens is attending school events and cheering on the team. Some students go to musical events to support that way. Others attend plays and such. One thing that shows you support the school is the school song. The school song is like the pledge in a way. The song is showing loyalty to the school just as the pledge is showing loyalty to our country. If it isn't for the country and what the pledge stands for, there would be no school like the one you went to. Everything would be different, so schools should have students stand and say the pledge before school. As an act of respect and support, I strongly believe that the Pledge of Allegiance should be said in the morning by all staff and students. States that make the Pledge of Allegiance mandatory is becoming more popular. At the beginning of each day, many public and private schools around the country, students stand and recite the pledge. In fact, 35 states have passed laws mandating that the pledge be recited on a daily basis. And an article from the HuffingtonPost.com from September 18, 2012 states that a week prior to the article, that a Michigan legislation was passed requiring all state public schools to set aside time for the Pledge of Allegiance and every classroom display an American flag. Continuing the article, it states that the last month in August, the Nebraska Board of Education voted to approve a rule changing it to make it mandatory for state public schools to set aside time each day for the pledge. Like in Michigan, Nebraska students will not be forced to recite the pledge under the new rule, provided they respect peers who do participate. In a different HuffingtonPost.com article, it explains the Nebraska legislation. Failure to comply with the new requirement could put districts at risk for losing their accreditation and therefore state funds. Again, students will not be forced to recite the Pledge of Allegiance under the new rule, as they will have the option of standing or sitting quietly, provided they respect the peers who do participate. However, schools will be required to set aside time for the pledge, which is fair in my eyes. Van Burke proposed an amendment that would require flags to be present in every classroom and every student stand during the pledge, even if they did not elect to join in. He also added that students should be required to write a 50-word essay if they choose not to recite the pledge, and the essay is on what it means to be an American. That amendment would be just right. There are veterans who can't stand today and couldn't stand when they were still here because they fought for us to be able to stand and support our country, and we should do so. That amendment was not passed, though. There are 2 states that have changed the legislation on this topic. From PBS.org, in 1940, Minersville School District versus Globus. The question of the court was whether public school students should be required to recite the pledge even against their sincerely held religious beliefs. Justice Frank Furter, writing the decision for an 8-1 majority, held that the First Amendment's freedom of speech protection does not excuse students from reciting the pledge because the pledge represented an important symbol of our national unity, which gave the state compelling interest in enforcing the law. This case is a great example, stating that the pledge represents national loyalty, which goes along with a unity and honor. Standing up and saying the Pledge of Allegiance is not a violation of the First Amendment, freedom of speech. First Amendment states that no law should be passed for religion, and that is why people are upset about the Pledge of Allegiance. Looking into the laws, nowhere does it state that you have to recite the pledge. The Pledge of Allegiance does not infringe on our Youth Amendment's rights, and yet it is broadcast that way through every public venue out there. The pledge is simply a poem saying how we are proud to be one nation, an American in the land of the free. The authors never intended that the pledge to be a light and a negative attention, but a celebration of America. To be an American, we are able to have free speech, but my question is, has anyone bothered to ask the students how they feel about the Pledge of Allegiance, or has it been the decision of lawmakers and their parents to abolish and destroy the pledge? Some believe that the parents have had more of a voice than the children have. The pledge provides us with history and reminds us of what Americans' values were back then. The Pledge of Allegiance is not pushing religion on anyone young or old. It really does not matter what age you are, but I bet you can remember reciting the pledge in school, and for most school-aged children, reciting the pledge is the start of their day. Do you think that they're being told what religion they should be? Everyone makes their own decisions in life, and the 30 words of the Pledge of Allegiance is not going to change anyone's beliefs. The pledge might give you a better appreciation of the great free American country we fight for and live in. Also, saying under God is not a direct religious statement. In another Huffington Post article from earlier this week, it explains how an atheist couple in Massachusetts brought a lawsuit against the Acton-Roxbury Regional against school district, arguing the phrase under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. They said it discriminates against children because it defines patriotism according to a particular religious belief. They lost their case in Superior Court, so they appealed to the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, who agreed to consider their suit. Nielsen, author of this article, continues to sing how cruel and unjust it is to force students to say the Pledge of Allegiance. There's nothing wrong with standing in front of our country's flag, hand over heart, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, paying respects. Schools cannot force students to stand, but they can make the students write an essay stating why they won't stand and why they don't need to. Nelson, another author of a HuffingtonPost.com article, also stresses that under God statement. The Doe family argued that the phrase violates the so-called Establishment Clause of the Constitution. The court ruled that reciting the Pledge of Allegiance in schools serves as an advancement of patriotism and does not actively establish or promote religion. If the words under God bother so many people so much, then we should be consistent and remove the words off our currency, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution. If we have to take the words out of the pledge, we should have to take it off the money. People are against the statement under God more than likely have no problem using our money that says in God we trust. What is the difference? The word God on money that is used daily and is in the Pledge of Allegiance. It just needs to be dealt with. Is it good? What is good for everyone? The words under God, some say, are unconstitutional and pushing religion on our youth today. The Federal Appeals Court ruled that the Pledge of Allegiance is the endorsement of the religion with the words under God in it. Lawmakers are irritated by the verdict that was made. They want the Supreme Court to get involved in the case. The House members were so infuriated with the decision, they stood on the front steps of the Capitol and recited the Pledge of Allegiance. The phrase under God is not used as a prayer. It is not directed towards a certain God. All schools should require students to stand and say the pledge before school starts. The national anthem is sung or played before every high school sporting event. then the Pledge of Allegiance should be said before school starts every day. In school, freedom of speech is something we're entitled to as Americans, but that doesn't mean that you can disrespect our country by doing so. 6 out of 11 classmates agree that the Pledge of Allegiance should be said every day. 10 out of 13 did say that the Pledge of Allegiance, they had to say it in school. Also, based on the survey results from classmates, it is more important to recite the pledge in high school and middle school than it is in elementary school. This topic is very diverse. Even in all reality, it shouldn't be. I have my view on it, but I can see both sides of it. But what it really comes down to is support, respect, loyalty, and honoring our country that we are so fortunate to live in. I believe that it is important for students to recite the Pledge of Allegiance because it gives a sense of patriotism, something to be proud of, and knowing someone has fought for what we have today.
I know.
Really good music.
I know, I was sitting there going, we should have